Hello and welcome. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hubert, and this is a special edition of the China Negotiator. Today, we're looking at the cultural analysis of Chinese negotiating behavior. We'll be comparing U.S. and PRC negotiating cultures using Hofstede's 6 dimensions framework. Culture is real. Culture can make you weak or strong in a negotiation. Strong is better. Let's do that. So the end of the story first. What are the big cultural indicators? China's respect for central authority is the primary driver of individual and corporate tactics and behaviors. China is collectivist, and you are not part of the collective. Your business may very well depend on your ability to build relationships. Chinese use time more actively than you do. You'll be rushed, you'll be stalled, and they're going to try to outweight you in many situations. Culture is key for negotiators because culture drives behaviors. Negotiation involves tactics, which the other side sees and experiences as behaviors. So a good negotiator can use cultural analysis to gain a competitive advantage. And the tool we're going to use to achieve competitive advantage is Hofstede's book, Cultures and Organization, and the 6-dimension model that it contains. It's a good book. I advise you to read the book. But if you don't read the book, and many of you won't, then check out the website right there. And from this website, I got this chart. And these are the 6 dimensions of both China and the United States. So the dimensions are power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty, avoidance, long-term versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. Let's look at the important ones in some detail. First is the power distance index. And you can see on the right, China has a very high power distance index of 80, and the United States is lower. Power distance is, in the words of Hofstede, the extent to which the less powerful members of organizations and institutions accept and expect that power is distributed unequally. So this is a measure of how regular people in society feel that rewards and wealth and opportunity is distributed unequally. And China's is very high. And the behaviors this yields is, number one, suspicion. The power in question in China, the P in PDI, is the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. And it's nationalistic, it's populist, and there's a military orientation. And their P definitely is suspicious of your power, your P. This is also going to influence information flows. They're going to want a lot of information from you, but you're not going to get much information from them. And you'll be negotiating for a lot of non-economic agenda items, one of which might be your intellectual property. And the next big one is individuality versus collectivism. And this is the degree to which people in a society are integrated into groups. And you can see the United States is very individualist, one of the highest individualist scores, and China is very low. It's very collectivist. If you're a collectivist, you're in the in-group and everyone else is in the out-group. And that means if you're going to China to negotiate, you're starting out as the out-group. Collectivists tend to be less open to outsiders than individualists. They already have all the connections they want, and they're going to have to make room for you. So the behaviors you'll see in your Chinese counterpart, first, the relationship building process is highly ritualized. You should see the banquets and the KTV drinking and all the social events as an informal due diligence process. They want to know your character and your business philosophy before they allow you into the in-group. And you're starting from a position as the outsider, and you're looking to change that. And the last big influence is LTO, the long-term orientation. So the textbook definition is societies with a low score on this dimension maintain time-honored traditions and norms and view society change with suspicion. People with a high score here, like China, are pragmatic. They encourage thrift and modern education as a way to prepare for the future. Put another way, high LTO scores prepare for the future, low LTO scores fight the future. The Chinese are pragmatic. They will change basic values if they have to. They think in terms of generations. The U.S. is more traditional. We think that morals and ethics are fixed. We don't want to change. The behaviors you'll see, first, truth is more variable for the Chinese side. Next, Chinese are good planners, and they tend to be long-term planners. And right now, the Chinese have tied their ability to climb the tech ladder to the survivability of the Chinese people. And the last one I'm going to talk about is the uncertainty index. This is the extent to which members of a culture feel threatened by ambiguous or unknown situations. And I'm including it because it's lower than a lot of people expect in China. When you see China's very strict behavior, it's probably as a result of the high PDI, because a low uncertainty index indicates they don't have a lot of faith in institutions, like courts. It also means they'll cut corners on production, and they will try to game the system when signing contracts. So the Chinese can be gamblers, and they're used to breaking rules and looking for angles. And this means in many cases they'll sign contracts to get incentives, but will break them over penalties. So let's sum up. The primary behaviors that you'll encounter as a negotiator in China, the Chinese side really doesn't necessarily want to see you win. As a result of their high PDI and their collectivist approach, they're going to be suspicious of you. But they're going to display power in passive-aggressive ways. And these might be indirect, they might be stalling, they might make you wait, and they might tell you that there's nothing that can be done because a third party that's far above them in the chain of command has said no. Finally, they will manipulate different levers of power than you're used to. You consider things like time and transparency and honesty to be pretty black and white. It's yes or no, on time or not on time. But in China, they use these concepts strategically as well as tactically, and it's never in your favor. A final word. The Chinese negotiators' default setting is that they don't want to see you succeed, and that's the first thing you've got to change if you're going to negotiate successfully in China. Culture reveals the emotional buttons. For China, the ambition and greed is the big motivator. For you, risk and fear are the big motivators. So you got to learn to push their buttons while defending yours. Their Achilles heel is they can be blinded by ambition when they're confident, and they can get pretty desperate and malleable when things look bad. Thanks very much. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hubert. If you are interested in a further discussion of cultural influences of negotiating behavior, please take a look at the beta version of a new mini course I've done. The address is below. It's free to sign up, but I would appreciate feedback and constructive comments. Thanks again. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hubert, and I'll talk to you again soon.